So we run the passing game. If you take this line here, this line here, this line here, and this line here, and you play in between there and have a good time, you'll end up scoring. So forget the plays. Just go out there, have a good time, run around like a chicken with your head cut off, make those stiffs run and chase you on defense a little bit, and you too can win a few games.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into the DNBA live show presented by Illegal Pete's. Eric, just no participation.
I can't do it, man.
I can't believe you. I cannot believe you, man.
Have you no spirit?
No
joy?
He has none. No joy, no spirit.
He doesn't do this for the love of the game anymore. He just does the cash the checks.
Sold out.
Those checks. My guest up to the top right, Eric D-Line Co.
Listen, guys, can I take this moment to apologize for not participating in the air horn? I just don't feel vote hits it so hard. Wind brings something special to it. I just feel like I drag it down. That's all there is.
You drag everything down, Eric.
Yeah, that's true.
No, it's not dragging me down. Harrison Wynn's hair.
You know, like when Ben Wallace used to take out the cornrows when he was at home, just let the fro fly.
This is just like that.
That's what I'm doing tonight.
You look so much like Ben Wallace. Anyway, the muscle.
He's the defensive anchor. The defensive anchor of the DNBA show.
And then over here, it's Brendan Vogt.
Nothing special for me.
Harrison Vogt.
Oh wow, that's
That
all right. Actually, I wouldn't mind that. Harrison's a nice name.
Coming on to the show today is our special guest, one of my favorite podcasters, and somebody I would say is first team all summer league. I don't know if this is an actual award, but I would definitely think it is.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, the host of the Fastbreak Breakfast podcast, a podcast I have appeared on, I think, 3 times. It's Keith Parrish. Welcome him in.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. First team summer league.
Yeah.
Also,
Josh Selby.
First team all guest with that. Is that a Denver Nugget shirt?
Yeah, I got my Denver Nuggets. Like, there it is.
Perfect.
There it is.
Perfect.
I feel honest, a deep connection to this man.
Yeah, already beards.
Well, look at the two of us. I feel like I'm looking into the future, I have no idea how old you are.
It's the future.
Okay, go.
Keith, be honest. You were a little flattered to be first team all summer league. That's a real honor.
It's a great honor. I mean, you have your Damian Lillards. You have your
Chris Dunn's.
I was thinking, like, what's that guy? Is it Darius Miller? No, who's that?
That he balled out?
Quincy Miller.
Yeah.
Quincy, there you go. You
I'm
got
trying
it.
to pull up a Nuggets. I thought he was going to be incredible.
Yeah.
Also, Nicholas Skeetishvili, first team all summer league.
That's summer league MVP.
That was before me. I never saw Skeetishvili play at summer league. I don't remember that. But.
I've heard it was freaking crazy.
It's a whole legend to Skeetishvili. So today we actually have a full show of some really interesting topics. This is going to be the most basketball I feel like we've talked in quite a while. I'm like really excited. We always we have a toe in basketball, then we're all out all over the place. But I wouldn't bring on a Memphis Grizzlies / basketball obscurity expert like Keith if we weren't going to talk any basketball. So we're going to start off our first question. Keith has. Would you say the Grizzlies are always your number one team?
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Very much diehard Grizzlies. Since they announced they were moving from Vancouver to Memphis, I was like, I live in Nashville, but that's close enough. I felt the kinship, the geographic kinship of the state. And so I've been like a diehard Grizzlies fan since day one of coming to Memphis. But I have on the side, I've dabbled with the Nuggets, but never ahead of my main piece, the Grizzlies.
Of course, yeah.
The Nuggets were your side piece team for like at least 2 years.
A long time. It was literally, it was Jokic came in and had like a 9-assist game and then like an 8-assist game. And I was like, who is this fella? I love him. And I actually remember seeing him at Summer League too. And so that was a guy who like I immediately grabbed him in my like hardcore fantasy basketball league I was in.
Oh, nice.
Assist out of the center spot. And like since then, I was immediately in love with Jokic and thus became like a Nuggets fan since the emergence of Nikola Jokic.
Fantasy basketball fans are really into Jokic. Like they were the early adopters. Like, hey, this guy.
It really was.
Fantasy.
I mean, it was the thing where you're checking your box score and you're like, "Who's this guy who got 9 assists?" And it's like he's a center. That doesn't make any sense. And then I haven't looked it up, but I feel like the next game he had a good number of assists, and it was like, I will bid a lot of money to have this guy on my team because maybe he's going to give it. And then obviously how goofy he looks, and his. The pudginess, the demeanor, all the fun passes, and it's like league pass junkie. That's all you're hoping for. And so I've been very into the Nuggets. And Adam, you briefed me. You were like, "Welcome to the bandwagon. It's going to be painful, just so you know." There's a history of letdowns, and so I mean, like, I feel like I've been sort of along for the ride because the ascendance of the Nuggets coincided a little bit with like the downfall or the dip in the grit and grind Grizzlies, and so like I had a playoff team in the Nuggets, and I got to enjoy that agony when my own team wasn't making it. So
well, that's why we're bringing you on, or part of the reason why we're bringing you on, because the grit and grind Grizzlies. I've said this like 2-3 years ago, and I feel like it's less true the deeper I get into the Nuggets. I said 2-3 years ago, if the Nuggets had a grit and grind Grizzlies run, that's a success to me because that team was very lovable. I always say it's important for a team to have sort of a brand, and like grit and grind, they're memorable, right? There's a lot of good teams that don't have an identity, and you kind of forget about them. Grit and grind, everybody knew them. They were really good. They were probably underrated. They were probably closer to getting over the hump than people realize. But when you don't get over the hump, people can't seem to put you in a certain category. But I want to know, why didn't they get it over the hump? Why for 8 years or whatever it was did they go up against some of the best teams but never quite beat them in the playoffs?
I think the simple answer, not to be like trite, is they didn't have one of the best 5 players in the NBA. Yeah. And that's what every NBA franchise deals with. And if you don't even have, the Grizzlies didn't have a top 10 player in the NBA. I mean, maybe like 2013, like Gasol, he was first team All NBA, but there's the funny business because you have a center position. So he wasn't really one of the best 10 players in the NBA. So I think that that's the long and short of it. I think if they had a couple of fortuitous breaks, they could have won a title. I think in 2011, when the Mavericks won a title, it was one of those years where LeBron maybe wasn't ready and there wasn't a clear alpha dog in the league. And then I think their best team was against the Warriors, and I think they could have won the title that year. It just didn't work out. Mike Conley fractured his face, and Tony Allen pulled his hamstring. Yeah. And again, when you're a small market team like the Grizzlies and Memphis, you basically immediately slide off the national radar, and people remember the grit and grind Grizzlies, and nationally they're like, oh, that was a fun, lovable era. But I always feel like if Memphis was the Bulls or the Celtics or the Sixers, we would think of this team as being way better than it was. Like this team was, in my opinion, one of the top maybe 6 or 7 teams in the NBA for 4 straight years. Definitely. And that's basically a title contender. And I think they had a couple of chances. But again, when you're a small market team and you're in the West and you don't win that many playoff games, you kind of get forgotten.
Was the Warriors year, that was the how's it going here, right?
That was the how's it going here. So the Grizzlies lost game 1. People forget that Mike Conley had a broken face and did not play. Nick Kalathis, who I adore, but Nick Kalathis was in way over his head. And so like the Grizzlies lost at Golden State in game 1. Mike Conley came back game 2. The Grizzlies win. They win at home in game 3 where Tony Allen seriously aggravates or then in game 4, Tony Allen seriously aggravates a hamstring injury and he goes out. This is remembered in a false history that Zach Lowe has perpetuated. That
wow, the rare Zach Lowe.
You guys,
let's do it.
So if I ask any of you guys, like, what was the turning point in the Warriors Grizzlies series? The narrative has been written and established because the victors write the history.
Of course,
they say, "Oh, Steve Kerr adjusted, and put Andrew Bogut on Tony Allen, and that was the series.
That's not what happened?
What happened was Tony Allen pulled his hamstring and couldn't play basketball. And there was a run where Andrew Bogut was guarding a hobbled Tony Allen. And Tony Allen's I can't play. And so there was a run where Andrew Bogut was guarding an injured Tony Allen. And so that became the history. Grizzlies fans, and especially us truly diehard cultish members of the Grit and Grind, will let you know the Grizzlies were 2-0 against the Warriors when Tony Allen and Mike Conley played.
Okay, Kendrick Perkins. Okay.
Hey, small market victories, man. Small market victories.
I will say, though, I was at Game 3. I drove to Memphis for Game 3. It's called the Mike Conley Mask Game in Memphis. And the Grizzlies went up 2-1. And I guess I was old enough at that point and seasoned enough and maybe jaded enough to be like, this is probably the apex of my Grizzlies fandom. I'm gonna soak this in. I'm gonna have 48 hours to be like, man, there's a 22% chance we'll make the finals. And so I definitely soaked in that 2-1 lead, being like, this is as good as it gets. And it was.
Is there an alternate?
That was right.
What year was that? Because was that the first title run for the Warriors? It was, right?
It was. The Grizzlies, no joke, the Grizzlies legitimately could have won the title that year. I think they were the best team in the Western Conference. The Warriors, maybe they're just being friendly because no one cares about the Grizzlies. They've said that was the toughest test they faced was the Grizzlies.
That's such a classic line you say about a team that you have no beef with. Actually, the Grizzlies. So
I think you for a small market team or a team even like the Nuggets, where you're not going to have a top 10 player. As much as I love Jokic, I don't think he's a top 10 player. If you're not going to have a top,
all right, guys, that was Keith Parrish. That was really enjoyable. Sorry, Keith, had to kick you out there for a second.
Let's just start off.
You said Jokic was not a top 10 player.
Yeah, let's start. Can we get the beginning of the show?
Where do you guys have? Where do we have Jokic? I love Jokic. One of my favorite players.
7 through 10, maybe.
He's in between number 1 or 2.
I have Jokic firmly in the top 10.
I don't really count players. Okay. I mean, he's one of the him and Embiid are the best 2 centers, right?
Hey, don't back down if you think it.
It honestly doesn't matter. It's funny to laugh and yell about.
Are we counting the hurt players? I mean, we got Durant, we got Curry, we got Harden, we got Antetokounmpo.
You're running out of guys.
That's 4.
Is that it?
He's definitely behind those guys.
Okay.
No, I mean, you're right, though. I think when we did it at the beginning of the year, he was 7th or 8th or something like that. To us, if you had him 11, 12, 13, I wouldn't get too freaked out about it. I mean,
he would just kick you out of the show.
Kick you out of the show.
How do we feel about Damian Lillard?
Look, somebody gonna see Blake's ready to hop out of the chat.
I mean, I haven't even mentioned Rudy Gobert. What's wrong?
Well, all right.
I got something. All right. So let's say if you top out with the 8th best player,
sure,
and also your 8th best player isn't a natural shot creator, an on-ball player all the time. You could whatever if y'all want to get real fanatical about Jokic being an on-ball player. But I feel like you have to have those perfect windows.
Oh yeah,
where there's not a perfect team out there, a chance for a Raptors to break through last year. Even though they had Kawhi. Kawhi's better than
but it was still a perfect break though.
It was a perfect break for them.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's what your small market teams need.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm also a proponent of if you're going to have one of the 8 best teams in the league, you just go for it. And I think that's where the Nuggets are right now, where there's no reason to get all dunked on brain about it and be like, you got to tear it down, or when you're you're bumping your head against the wall of you're never gonna beat. If it's the Grizzlies, you're we're not gonna beat the Warriors or we're not gonna beat the Thunder. And it's but we're one of the best 8 teams. What are you going to do? You just you hope it breaks for you. Only one team wins it every year, and normally that team has LeBron James or one of the best players ever on it. So,
so it's funny because as a Grizzlies fan, and you have this, I guess, benefit of hindsight. It doesn't work out. Would you trade that in, them trying to get all Galaxy Brain GM to build, some shadow of a contender's blueprint or whatever versus all right, we'll zag when everyone else is zigging and we're one of the top 8 teams. We may be number 8, but let's run with this.
I think anytime you can be a top 8 team, you just go with what you have. Maybe if you're really old or something, you're we have a chance to reload. by trading off Kevin Garnett and a Paul Pierce and your Ray Allen. You do it that way. But if your guys are young, if they're in their late 20s even, I'm still more of the belief there's no proven, like the blow it up and build. There's no proven success on that.
Oh, of course.
I mean, like the Sixers, they're the 6 seed right now, or the 5 seed when the season ended. Yeah. All the teams at the top didn't do that right now. The Bucks, the Raptors, the Clippers, the Lakers. Like the Lakers were terrible, but like none of them really did the full.
That one doesn't count. But your point about the other ones, I think, does count. Was there a move? Was there a year where you look back now and you go, man, that was the year? Like, and it sounds like a lot of times the moves that pay off are Zebo and Tony Allen, two beloved grit and grind Grizzlies. It's like you trade them for Paul George for 1 year who doesn't want to be there, but it's like, you know what? We're just going for it, and we're better with Paul George.
Yeah, well, I think when you're a small market team, and again, if you don't have a Jokic on your team, if you're just stuck with a merely like a Marc Gasol, who's maybe the 12th player in the league,
poor bastard.
I think you have to get lucky and have that window open, and you have to nail all your moves. And if there's one I circle for that 2013, I think this was the 2013 year where they lost in the conference semifinals to the Warriors, is that they signed Vince Carter that year, and Vince Carter was horrible. And that was like their I think it was their full mid-level or whatever it was. It was like a $5 million a year contract. And he was supposed to fulfill this shot-creating role, this bench role. And he was awful the whole season. They ended up trading to get Jeff Green to hope Jeff Green could fill it in. And so, and Jeff Green, everyone knows Jeff Green. He looks like he's doing well, and then you see the stats, and the team always gets crushed whenever on the court. And that was the same thing for the playoffs, where it's like every time Jeff Green was on the court, like the plus-minus was awful.
Jeff Green's what you do when your first mid-level exception doesn't work out.
It's so true. And that's what happened. So the Grizzlies went with Vince Carter, who, people remember him fondly because he's a great guy and he's a Hall of Famer, but he was awful that season on the Grizzlies. And it's just another example of the Grizzlies buying a guy who was maybe chronically injured. They didn't know it. And I think that's why grit and grind kind of gave way, because they were spending so much money. This also, I guess, applies to the Nuggets. When you're spending a max money on a guy who's not really a max player, which is Jamal Murray for the Nuggets, it was Mike Conley for the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies were in a similar situation where it's like you pay Mike Conley the max or you get nothing, right? Because you're over the cap. Right. It's like we can max it, we can go right up to the luxury tax line. So we were not stuck with Mike Conley, but you're overpaying. You're never going to get max production out of him. So you have to then hit on all the other small contracts. And again, the Grizzlies were great. They won 57 games, and they were maybe a top 5 team in the league that year. But if they could have gotten anything out of Vince Carter and Jeff Green, that might have been enough to put him over the hump. But as it was broken face Mike Conley, and then Zebo, Gasol, and Tony Allen, Courtney Lee, like doing what they could. And being very good, but missing maybe that one chance to get lucky and end up with a title.
I have a small PSA. This isn't because Keith is on the show, because we've said this like a lot this year. But Keith did just bring it up. Can we stop calling Jamal Murray a max player until next year? Because he's not on a max contract yet.
Yeah. Asterisk.
Like we've done this all year.
And he's just, it is fair. It is fair.
And he's not on a max contract.
And we're at this point with the Jamal Murray stuff.
Are you getting max production out of Paul Millsap?
Oh man,
not on the max contract.
Yeah. Why would he? He's not a max contract.
I hate this
the Millsap deal
already.
Yeah, Millsap deal's fine.
Yeah, and like what Wind is insinuating, which is true, is that Jamal Murray will play like a max player next year.
I'm not saying he will. I'm saying he could, and it's unfair to judge him like that.
I will say this: when people talk about Jamal Murray, and I'm don't think this is going to happen by any stretch, but it is like, this is a 5-year deal. Can he, over the course of 5 years, like reach into that to where he's worth it? Again, I would bet against that, because I think I shared probably Keith's perspective on him, but I do think Harrison is also fair in saying, like, yeah, you almost always pay a younger player before they're a max guy. He's gonna turn into this, and maybe Jamal does.
And when, again, like to the small market point, like when you're Memphis or Denver, you don't get like first pick at the buffet line of stars and all the tiers of stardom, and also you have to overpay people to stick around. Like, you can't guarantee that you will sign or draft another player as good as Jamal Murray in the Jokic era. Like, that is, the odds are against you there. So when you have a guy whose ceiling is good enough or maybe good enough, and you're a team like Denver or Memphis, you really don't have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Jamal's in that perfect spot where I think the people that, hype him up and the people that knock him down actually view him the exact same way. I had this conversation with Ryan Blackburn about it because Ryan's like a big Jamal guy and he's really been pushing him. And as we were going through, it's like we both have the exact same expectation for what he's going to be. It's just we're viewing it, I think, through the lens that Keith is presenting here, which is you have to have your two best players or your two highest paid players be good enough.
Right.
Like they have to be LeBron and Anthony Davis or Kawhi and Paul George in today's NBA. They can't be like, oh, he's pretty good. He's the 25th best player. It's like, yeah, you're going to always be that second tier team.
Except if you catch the league in one of those off years like Keith was talking about, like see the Mavericks when Dirk finally got his. If the Nuggets are able to catch the league, and if Memphis was able to catch the league in one of those years, that's when you can win it, when you don't have two of those certified top 10 guys.
What I'm taking from this conversation is that it's so foolish to follow the NBA unless you live in Los Angeles.
It's that hard to win, man.
But you know what? It's the likelihood of you winning is so low, but the payoff is so great. You
how
just
would we
keep
know?
going back. Well, I don't know. I assume. I believe it. It's like when we can use the Vegas metaphor. If you're at the craps table, you could just play the cum line or whatever, just like right there, or you can get crazy and be like, snake eyes are coming up. I know it doesn't come up very often, but
the takeaway is rings culture is idiotic.
Yeah, that's the
takeaway.
Yeah.
That's like there's so many things that have to go right, and even like you talk about like Los Angeles, they haven't won anything in forever, and unfortunately the pandemic took away their shot right now. And so you don't know what's going to happen if you have a chance to be good and pretty good. You try to win, and that's again going back to what Adam answered. I'll answer it again. I wouldn't trade it for anything. The 8 years of the Grizzlies being very competitive.
Yeah,
If we hadn't signed Vince Carter and Brandon Wright and Chandler Parsons and Ben McLemore in 4 consecutive seasons and missed every draft pick, the Grizzlies, whatever. We got lucky again, and now we're awesome again.
That's right. Yeah. It's almost a perfect segue, but I want to go one more area here. Can you give me your 5 favorite Grizzlies of the grit and grind Grizzlies era? Is it possible to go with 5?
Well, I mean, 5 is too easy. I mean, Tony Allen's my favorite player ever.
Okay.
Marc Gasol, one of my all-time favorite players. You have to go Zebo. Now I'm deciding if I'm going to leave out Mike Conley. Mike Conley's awesome. Like, it's actually a shame they messed up so many moves in a row where Mike Conley's peak, which was after this, they had nothing for him. So I guess I'll say Mike Conley. If I had to choose a 5th, it would actually be Nick Kalathis because that man was hilarious. That man was. I mean, there was a brief window. Let's go back to the year before they made the conference finals. Might have been their most talented team. They had a second unit of they had Ed Davis and James Johnson and Nick Kalathis and Tony Allen would be out there, and no one could score on them. Yeah, it was incredible.
Could they score though?
But Jaeger, honestly, they crushed people. I mean, they were usually playing other second units. It's like the Grizzlies this season, where they have a second unit that crushes other second units. But I adored it. But then when it got to the playoffs, Jaeger didn't play like any of those guys outside of Tony Allen. But
okay, well, now we can turn our attention to the future. We just went to the past. We're gonna skip the present and go straight to the future.
There is no present.
Yeah. And we're gonna look at the best young cores. This is a term that doesn't actually mean anything. It can mean whatever you want it to. Allie, can you cue up? I'm gonna show you. We're gonna play the new meme that's sweeping the interwebs.
We're gonna play the new meme. That's everyone's favorite dad.
That's how you say it, right? We're gonna play the new meme. Allie, cue up. In the club. We're going to play in the club or not in the club.
Sweeping the nation. I think I saw this on Twitter for like a couple hours.
I have
once every 3 years.
I have been dying to play this game since I saw it like 6 days ago. You're right. It's already an old meme. It lasted 4 hours.
Keith, one of the best dynamics that exists on this show, if you want to call this a show, is Brendan's absolute disgust at Adam's inability to keep with the times. It's so great.
He's like one of the most inspiring creative people I've ever worked with. He does so much great stuff, and it's like he's the VP of DNVR. He doesn't know what an airdrop is.
Listen, I'm Team Adam all the way here. I don't keep up with anything. I saw like this collection of characters on Twitter and I didn't know what it was, and it was Grimes' baby name, and like I saw the letters together, and I realized I don't want to know what that is.
Yeah.
I went. I felt like 24 hours not knowing what that was. Like I'm a person who like uses the mute feature on Twitter. When I see like a meme, I'm like, I'm not muting this word.
Oh wow.
I don't. I'm very.
That's why you haven't been seeing my tweets. It all makes sense, Keith.
You're definitely going to want to unmute in the club or not in the club.
Like, I saw that photo and I thought it was just somebody I didn't really know. I'm like, I've seen this a couple times. I don't know what that is.
Oh my god! All right, so we're gonna go over some young cores here. I've selected these. Maybe at the end you can tell me I left somebody out that I should not have, and you're just gonna tell me if they're in the club or not in the club. And this just means like, oh, you're buying them. This is a young core that we need to be concerned with.
Yeah.
And then here's the other thing. I cut it off at 25 years old, but you can still factor in the guys that are 25. For example, a Jokic.
I don't want any 25-year-olds in my club. Get out the club. Out the club.
Whoa!
Who are the? Is Jokic 25? How old's Jokic?
Jokic is 25. But here's what I was going to say.
Out the club.
Jokic has never stepped foot inside a club, so don't worry about that.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has. Just
he's seen him in a tree. That's a tree.
He's
in a
tree.
tree.
Trees.
It's
the courtyard of a club.
The opposite of a club. They're playing folk music.
So you can factor those guys in. It's just obviously they're older. So Jokic probably is what he's going to be, but whatever. He's going to be a Nugget for a while, so maybe he counts. All right, let's go number 1, the Celtics. I've got their core: Tatum, Brown, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, a handful of other garbage, but most of that's mostly the core.
We don't like garbage in the club.
Is this a squad? Is this a squad?
Well, I'm confused about the rules.
There's no rules, Keith.
Okay. I mean,
the rule is I really wanted to use this meme, and it kind of makes sense for this.
Yeah.
Tatum and Brown are both awesome, but that's just like two guys.
That's not really a club.
That's not a core. They're out the club.
Out the club. Wow.
Boston, it's going to be a tight club, man.
It's going to be like we need to
here's my thing.
real quick so he gets this.
Yeah, I'm looking at like real young.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to be weird.
That was like a real weird comment. Yeah. We're talking about in the club and you're looking for real young.
I'm just talking about, I'm just, just use that clip. No context.
The club I want.
I gotta tweet that quote out.
I mean, I want to rig this game for my Grizzlies, and we're winning all the games that are the youngest.
Okay.
If it's the youngest,
you can't rent out the entire club for just the Grizzlies.
I will say. I mean, obviously the Celtics should be great for a long time because Tatum and Brown are both young. The rest of their core pieces I don't care about yet.
But they could get in the club with just Tatum and Brown, though, right?
Sure. I'm not going to argue that. Those guys are awesome. They're also like, when you're about to get paid, I don't know. It loses some of the luster.
Yeah, I love it. That's actually kind of a fair point. But I do think that they're going to be around. They'd probably be in the club for me, but that's fine. All right, the 76ers, obviously they have Simmons, they have Thibault, they have Zaire Smith. Embiid's not, he's 26 or something, so he's not in the club. Or he's old. What do you think about them? Well,
if the Celtics aren't in the club, the Sixers are really not in the club. Tatum and Brown is a much better young core than just Ben Simmons, coward, and Thibault, not a coward, just can't shoot. So
yeah.
So, but can we make sure, is anybody in this club before we?
There's one team I know he's going to have in the club. So.
It's a very exclusive club.
The 76ers team, like, what is their title window for title contention? Or do you think it's just like a very near version of the 76ers is so different from what it is now that it's not worth talking about as an extension?
I think their title window is 2019.
Okay, it's past. I love it. I love the spice. Let's bring.
I love Ben Simmons. I think Ben Simmons is amazing. I would give everything besides Ja and Jaren on the Grizzlies for Ben Simmons.
Okay.
But
here it goes.
I don't think what they have now.
I agree.
They would need one of those weird windows we were talking about where it just opened up perfectly. Because I think their ceiling is like 5th best team in the NBA. They're not even at that ceiling.
And they got that window last year, and they missed. I mean, granted, they were a couple bounces of the basketball away.
4
like,
bounces.
One thing I always have
4 bounces.
Yeah, like you always have to back up and remind yourself. But that was the year where they would have gone and there would have been no KD, and Philly gets their title.
Producer Allie is crying behind the scenes right now.
Are they ever going are they ever going to get max contract contributions from Al Horford and Tobias Harris? I don't think so. Even though maybe Horford's not technically a max. Like, they're paying so much money to these guys. I don't have them in my club, and I also think their title window, unless something drastic happens, is not open. I mean, Simmons is so young, they could pivot completely.
So can I give you a pivot that I have been pushing on this year show?
I love pivots.
A Jamal Murray, Ben Simmons swap, to me, I am so in on it. Now, let's be honest, you probably have to throw something else in if you're Denver right now. Maybe you ride Jamal Murray out one more year and he just goes to that next level. But Simmons and Jokic, I'm ready for it. This is what I want.
I don't know why the Sixers would do that.
Well, they need some shooting. They've got no shooting around them.
They want a max player.
They need a max player.
They need to give someone else a little too much money.
Isn't Jamal Murray like 37% from 3?
I try to tell Nuggets fans this all the time.
Just wait till next year.
I try to tell Nuggets fans all the time that they think I'm the Jamal hater, but everybody we have on the show that's not in Denver says the exact same thing. So
I guess if Jamal Murray's 3-point percentage is higher than the millions he makes next year, that's a win, right?
Wow, the spice coming out of Keith today. Wow.
All right, short.
It's a little depressing here.
Dude, this was the Matt Moore episode. I thought.
Now I'm leaving. See ya.
All right, number 3 here, the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is sad. Garland, Sexton, Kevin Porter Jr. Just throw it up.
I will say I didn't watch the Cavaliers.
Allie didn't even wait.
The Cavs can't even get in the line for the club. Yeah. They won't even let him in the line.
The bouncer reached his hand. Are you in the back? Absolutely.
Yeah. They can't even pay full cover. They can't even get in line.
I feel all of the clubs in Cleveland have been shut down.
Yo, these guys diced up the Nuggets not too long ago.
Oh God, that was so sad. Shut up, Brendan.
I was gonna say I haven't honestly watched the Cavaliers that much this year, but they also didn't make my short list when I did my 5 minutes of preparation. I mean, no, I'm not excited about any of their young players. So
you don't want to watch College Sexton slap the floor a couple times?
I do. I love that.
Kind of fun.
College Sexton's hair bothers me. That little braid, I can't handle it. At the club. There's a dress code. There's a dress code here at this club.
Oh God! All right, the Chicago Bulls. Arturis is now part of the core, so we got to add him in there. But they got Markkanen. They got Wendell Carter, my guy. And Kobe White, not my guy. Zach LaVine is over the age limit, but
so unfortunately, I set a very strict admittance policy by excluding the Celtics first. Yeah. And no, I'd rather have the Celtics 2 guys than any of that net on the Bulls. So no, they're out the club.
All right, they're out the club. Nobody's in
no one's
in this club.
Just Keith by himself.
Just waiting for the super young kids to come into the club.
Maybe I'm losing business right now, and with social distancing, Celtics come back in the club. We've got to boost them back. Celtics are back in the club.
Maybe we need a coupon policy to get more people in this club.
So you bought a coupon? We'll honor that. We'll honor
that. You know what's funny is I didn't even rank these by best to worst to best. I'm building up. I just went East and West, and I think all the good ones are in the West. Sadly, every year it's the West that has all the teams.
Yeah.
Last one in the East, the Atlanta Hawks. We got Trae Young. We got Collins, Herter.
Oh, they're in the club.
They're in the club.
No, they're in the club.
Wow. I'm kind of surprised by this one. Why are they in the club?
They're the anti-grit and grind Grizzlies.
Well, they are. I think the Hawks are on the short list when you're coming up of young core you're excited about. When they played those guys, I mean, Trae Young, obviously, I'm not a huge Trae Young believer. I saw maybe 8 games of theirs last year in full, and he was unbelievably good in 2 of them. And he was mediocre in 4 and atrocious in the other couple. So it's not a representative sample size necessarily. I have seen the guys on my team destroy them. I think they beat them by 40 in Atlanta. And it was all right, I don't know about Trae Young. But, I mean, I'm excited by Cam Reddish. I do have a little thing for guys who can't shoot. I'll have to so Cam Reddish seems
How are
good.
the Hawks in the club? You don't even believe in Trae Young.
And yet you don't love Jamal.
I have a lot of guys, though.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys. I think Trae Young is at least
Bruno
a guy
Fernando.
I haven't given up on. I think he possesses the most valuable skill in the NBA, which is hitting threes off the dribble, and he can control an offense. And he's young enough where I'm like, all right, maybe he will play someone on defense and can lead a team. And I do think offense is more important than defense. So you have John Collins. We're including John Collins. I think he's a very good player. You have Cam Reddish and then DeAndre Hunter. Those five. Kevin Huerter.
Huerter. I like.
There's a dearth of shooting guards in the NBA who can do anything, and Kevin Huerter is one of those guys. And he's young. And I know those five guys. I think the young Huerter, Reddish, Hunter, Collins, that 5-man unit actually has an incredible net rating for the season. So I think their young
I love it. He came in prepared.
Their young core is one of the ones where I'm like, I think they have an argument because I look at the whole league thinking who has an argument against my young Grizzlies core, and I know Hawks fans will think they might have the best core in the NBA, and I can't really argue with them other than the fact that I'm not a huge believer in Trae Young yet.
He murdered them. He
the best player on their team.
When you rattled off those 5 Hawks, Keith, I just thought 4 seed in the West, 4 seed in the East for the next 10 years.
They could be.
Yeah. 4 or 5 seed in the East.
They could all win co-player of the month, like the January. And I will say, point of order, that 60-win Hawks team would have finished 4th in the Southwest Division that year. Look it up.
And maybe that's the name of the club. The name of the club is the 4th seed in the East. The new hottest club downtown.
A very hot club. All right, so the Hawks. All right, we're going to get into some good ones now. This one I can't wait to hear your take on. The Pelicans. Zion, Ingram, Lonzo, Hayes. The list is dropping off at the end there, but very heavy at the top.
Kenrich.
Zion.
Kenrich is like 27 or something. I looked it up today, and I was really shocked at how old he is.
I think he's 25, but they're in the club. The Pelicans are in the club on the basis of Zion Williamson and Ingram and Lonzo Ball. I mean, those three there you're very excited about. Jackson Hayes seemed promising in the amount he played, but that's like that core, those few guys, and they're a little bit younger. Like I like them, and they're not a 24 or a 25 like some of the others we're talking about.
We're gonna get banned.
Even though Ingram's about to get paid that second contract, it loses some of the luster for me for the young core. But Lonzo Ball, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, assuming he stays, yes, that's a core. They're in the club.
I think as long as they have Zion, they're in the club.
Yeah, it's a one-man club.
It's just a one-man. It's true. Zion is his own club.
Although it's only been 17 games, I'm okay with. I'm accepting hot takes that Zion Williamson is the Trae Young of power forwards. That's fine with me.
Wow, like shoots threes and doesn't play defense.
A lot of stats.
I'll say this. I feel better about the Jokic slander before.
I do too. I feel a lot better. I've only heard that take from one person, so I'm kind of excited to have heard it from a second now.
Everyone talking about the Pelicans like they were going to catch the Grizzlies. The Pelicans were, I think,
this is versatile. This is what it is. Nurkic isn't actually good, guys. I mean, come on.
They lost to the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
I think they're basically 500 when Zion Williamson plays.
Wow.
I can go back to that like net rating. Their starting lineup that the Drew and Lonzo, Ingram favors Zion Williamson, I think is the highest net rating 5-man unit in the entire NBA. So they seemed awesome, but we haven't seen a lot yet. I'm just saying we haven't seen a lot yet.
I love it. Yeah, you know what? It is fair. To me, they're in the club. They've got bottle service. They're very comfortably in the club. There was no line. They went straight in.
They built the club around Zion.
Exactly. The Denver Nuggets. Ooh. So we've got Jamal Murray. We've got Michael Porter Jr., Bol. And you're going to laugh at these people I included on this list, but Noah Vonleh, PJ Dozier, also under 25.
Noah Vonleh's been 23
Kate's
for
like, who?
14 years.
No. Yeah, Noah Vonleh, I thought for
Noah Vonleh being 25 is very exciting and surprising.
Figure out Jordan Craig.
25.
Torrey Craig's at 29.
No, I said Jordan McRae. Don't forget about
Jordan McRae.
Oh, Jordan McRae. You know, one of the great things we lost with the pandemic is a Jordan McRae like 35-point April game. Those are like every season. Jordan McRae goes bonkers.
And Nuggets actually managed to lose that before the pandemic.
Yeah, they waived him. They cut him, right? I don't like the Nuggets are going to be good for the next few seasons, but I don't consider them in the young core club because I feel like the guys are too old. I don't think there's a lot more. There's not much better that Jamal Murray's going to get. I know that might be upsetting. But I feel like we kind of know what he is. I don't believe in a huge improvement. Some guys have done it. Kyle Lowry's done it. Chauncey Billups has done it. Like there's been a lot of point guards who later in the career got really, really good. I'm guessing no. I could easily be wrong. And then just Jokic, he's out of the club for me. A little bit too old. And it's all the Michael Porter Jr. question. And it's like I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I saw every one of his amazing games. I know that. I saw like that Pacers game where I was like, this is the best player I've ever seen.
Yeah, I felt that way.
That's the thing is his good games, he looks like the MVP. That's incredible.
So I would rather have I mean, if we're including Jokic, I guess, but
put it on wax. What is it? Oh, in or out? Are we in the club or not?
I'm gonna say if we have a cancellation from the Celtics, the Nuggets can get in, but otherwise
they're on the waiting list.
We got
Allie's like, what the hell graphic do I put up for this one?
Wait list.
It's funny, man. Like 2 years ago, I would have been, or even a year ago, beside myself. But 2 year windows for this whatever we're doing here. It's every 2 years, it's different.
It's so true. But like 2 years ago, we were so excited about Gary Harris. We're like, oh great, we have that penciled in. He's awesome. And then the last 2 years of Gary Harris, like kind of what happened, and it's no longer this is an exciting young piece of the team. It's more like that's a concerning spot. Like he's Tony Allen now, but he's not as good at defense, and that's not great. So
that's a great point by Darwin. Weren't the Nuggets like one of the youngest playoff teams ever this last year? Like, they were, right?
Yeah,
but they're all like 25 and good.
Right,
like,
right.
The thing, and all the other thing about it is they're getting a little bit of the thunder from like 2011, where it's like they're really young still. Yeah, but they've been in the conversation for enough years that it's like they're already in the.
We've talked about Jamal, Gary, and Yoke for 3 years now.
They're different than the Hawks, who are like still figuring out who they are. The Nuggets kind of know who they are. Now it's just can they become good enough at who they are.
Well, also it's a really good point. Like the Hawks are terrible. And so we're thinking like, oh, there's hope. We think this could
be
the future, for the future. And I think it's a good lesson to remember. It's a fun exercise to talk about cores and talk about like, oh, what we could be in the future. As a Grizzlies fan, when we're tanking, we're taking victory laps and things that aren't really real. We're taking victory laps in hope. And it's like that's where as a fan, I'm always like, no, you really should enjoy the time you're winning. If you're the Nuggets and you're the 3 seed, that's awesome. Like that's the good stuff.
Oh yeah.
When you're going to be bad, yes, it's preferable if you can spin a narrative of hope, which is what like the Hawks have and what the Grizzlies have. But it is actually technically better. And don't let any podcast tell you it's bad to win games and to like win 47 games and go to the playoffs. That's better.
Good take.
Your hope always, when it becomes real, when you get that young core, you know, the new car syndrome off the lot, you're like, man, this core is that good.
And like the Nuggets were, when they were in that phase, were just like already winning games. Like 2 years ago, they were one of the 5 youngest teams in the NBA. All 4 of them were bottom feeders, and the Nuggets had a lot of wins. So they almost like skipped that phase of by the time the national audience realized these three and company were good. You know, they were already like in that 2 seed, 3 seed kind of tier. So,
yeah. Well, we got to keep it moving here. Oklahoma City, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Terrence Ferguson, Amadou Diallo, that I can't even say his first name, Dort, yeah, something Dort, who actually murdered the Nuggets. Do you guys remember that? It was terrible.
Yeah.
There, out of the club.
Get out of the club. I can't believe you even bothered reading all those things. I watched every single Shai Gilgeous-Alexander shot on stats.nba.com recently because there's no NBA, and I'm like, this guy had a great year. I don't want to see more of him. But no, I mean, Shai is exciting. He's young. But no.
I think there are literally no clubs in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that's a great point. Here's an interesting one. The Timberwolves. Towns is actually only 24. I was surprised by that. Russell, Beasley, Kogi, Culver, Wancho, Vando. They're another show. And Wancho, man, they're another team that has, you know, top level guys. And I'm not a Russell guy, but whatever. But then they just have so many other guys. Like I don't know if you're high on a Kogi, but they've got like 8 of those guys.
So Okogie's 21 years old, which blew my mind a little bit that he's that young. So the Timberwolves are one where if you include up to 25, you think maybe they're in the club, but I think this team's going to be bad. And I think this team is like they, however, is opposed to being a team that I did not like watching recently. This core right now, like if they keep Malik Beasley, if they run it back next year with D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Karl-Anthony Towns, like that's going to be my favorite 32-win team in the NBA.
I'm so happy you said this, Keith. I could not agree more.
They're not going to be good. They're not going to be good.
They're going to be terrible. Terrible.
And thus, as Nuggets fans, you can still root for Malik and Juancho. It's harmless, I promise.
It's actually more fun to root for them when the team's bad. It's like, man, they got to get out of Minnesota, man. They're ruining them. Yeah, I'm low on them as well. And it's funny because if you went down the list with them in Atlanta and we're like, okay, Towns or Trey, I don't know. I would take Towns, Russell or Collins or whatever. You start going down, it's like you're taking all Timberwolves, and then you're like, yeah, no, they're not in the club. And part of that is because it's the Timberwolves, the organization, and then some of it is they don't. Russell, Towns, those guys to me, even Beasley to a certain extent, I feel like they need there's something they're missing that's not basketball. They need another piece there that's not the basketball pieces, in my opinion. I know it's kind of a hot take.
Russell and Towns give me a lot of KD and Kyrie energy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, I could see it. All right, moving on because we got to get through this one. The Kings, Fox, Bagley. That's kind of it. I mean, Giles, they're out of the club.
De'Aaron Fox is incredible. It was a lost season for Marvin Bagley, but no, get them out the club.
Out the club. All right, no, not for them. The Suns, Booker, Ayton, Bridges, Oubre, Cam Johnson, who I kind of like.
So with the age cutoff, with Booker being included, this team's on the club. This team is, I like DeAndre Ayton. It's like popular to kind of slam on him that he hasn't figured it out and he's bad at defense or whatever.
He's become underrated, I think. Yeah.
He's got so many skills and he's so young. You're like, it's amazing like how good he is. Maybe don't shoot the 17-footer every time, but he's good at some stuff that I'm excited about him. I like Mikal Bridges. If you want to play the net rating game, once again, you have to throw in a Rubio. But like when Mikal Bridges and if Kelly Oubre is included in this, I think he's 24 maybe.
Yeah, he's up there. He's at the cutoff.
So if you include Kelly Oubre, Devon Booker, Mikal Bridges, and Ayton, those four guys together actually had an incredible net rating, and I'm excited about all those guys. They're also a team where a player I hate on more than Trae Young is Devon Booker. I like on Fastbreak Breakfast. It's like a bread and butter for me. It's just throwing Devon Booker. I think he's kind of like insanely overrated, but maybe he'll put it together. He puts it. Like, he's so efficient and he's so good at offense, but he's so bad at everything else that I don't know. But
that's your second. This team is in the club, but their best player, I don't believe in them. That's your second one.
It's true. So right now, this club is the club of hope.
This club.
All right.
I'm well prepared to kick a lot of these guys out of the thing, but I don't think I can't cross off the Suns yet, even though I'm not a big Devin Booker fan.
Fair enough.
The Suns are in the same club to me as Minnesota. They're in that same one where it's like they're really good, but
the Suns can get in the club at like 8:30.
I think they have to be out of the club by 11. Like, all right, we're checking IDs at 11, guys. It's no longer a restaurant. It's a full-on bar. I think for them, like, if I told you 2 years from now, are the Suns a contender? Are they, like, in the conversation for one of the, like, tier 1 or tier 2 teams? Maybe. I mean, they have the talent, too. I just don't think they will.
See, I agree with you there. If this game was who's going to be a contender in 2 years.
But it's more about their timeline is 2 years. The Hawks' timeline is probably 4. So it's –
Yeah. But like I don't know. I guess maybe it's incorrect on my part. But in my whatever this mental exercise, I think of these young players as being like, if I was a fan of that team, I would still be optimistic, even though we're awful and get our teeth. Although I mean, honestly, the Suns were secretly coming on a little bit. They weren't that far behind the Kings, the Spurs, the Pelicans with awesome Zion Williamson.
17 games on.
I love this slander. I know exactly where it's coming from. It's Memphis and New Orleans are the true like same conference, same division. Like, when
totally someone tells us Dame is better than Jokic, like, all right, sure.
Yeah. I think it would be more like a Gobert Jokic, where it's like, but you'd rather have defense from your center guys. If we're being like, all right, you know what, F you. think there's some real.
Tell your center to defend our center.
Yeah, exactly. Get him too.
Yeah, there are fights going on in this club, by the way.
There's a lot of fights. There's a lot of fights outside the club too. All right, the Mavs, the Mavericks. This is a short list. Luka, Porzingis, and then I have Brunson.
Maxi Kleber. How old is Maxi Kleber?
He's old.
Fine.
28.
Yeah, he's fine. If the list drops off, though, it's a two-man core, really.
I mean, Doncic is more of a one-man party. I didn't even consider Porzingis being included. I've seen Porzingis walking out of clubs getting punched in the head. I don't want any of that riffraff. No. They're out the club.
Oh, my God.
I don't want any court.
Doncic might own this club. Come
One
on.
man does not need the court.
The world embraced KP.
I need the satisfaction of this out the club graphic. There it is. Boom. Get out of here, Mavs. Get out of here, Mavs.
There was a year where KP thought he was going to be one of the most popular people on earth. Like that was his trajectory, and God, did the next 4 years go different.
Oh wow, yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. All right. I think that's it. That's all the teams that I. Oh wait. Okay. I guess there is one. Okay. The Memphis Grizzlies. They've got Ja. They've got Jackson. Yeah. So tell me.
Now that's an air horn.
Let me put the order of young core. You could tell me how off I am on this because I had Ja, Jaren Jackson. Who's the next guy? Brooks. Brooks is. I'm a Brooks guy.
No.
He's killed the Nuggets.
No, that's a great question. I think third on the list, if you're ranking your assets or your hope, is either Brandon Clark or D'Anthony Melton. I guess.
Okay.
Clark.
Brandon Clark.
Third.
Yeah. So like Brandon Clark, D'Anthony Melton at like a 3 and 4. I think Dylan Brooks, he's like a 6 man or 7. He's a backup.
Yeah.
So you still have hope. Maybe Melton could be a starter, even though he's undersized. And then I don't know. Like, are you including?
I got Winslow's only like 20. I was surprised how old young he is.
Winslow just turned 24.
That's crazy to me. When I was looking at it, I was like, he's like 28.
Highest Jones is 23. Hey, here's a stat I found out today that will blow your minds. John Conchar.
I love it. I was so ready for this.
Well, John Conchar is the, I think, 7th oldest Grizzly.
And he's a rookie.
Because he was a 4-year guy.
This is a basketball player?
He's 24.
First of all, you would love Conchar. I'm telling you. I love Conchar. So I had somebody in the Nuggets front office before the draft this last year. I was like, what's a name that's like shows up high on the draft board that's like nobody's talking about or whatever? And it was Conchar. They're like, I mean, look, he might never be a player, but you know, if you look at some of the numbers, he projects to be like a top 4 player or something like this.
The Stepien guys who do their draft board, they had Conchar really like the 20th best player. Oh, also Jonte Porter. Just Jonte Porter.
Oh, man, I was really prepared for the Nuggets to get Jonte.
We got a free look at Jonte Porter. I mean, I guess based on this exercise, I think Justice Winslow is actually, now that I think of it, he's like 3rd or 4th on this of 4. I mean, I was blown away that Justice Winslow is younger than John Conchar. Tyus Jones is younger than John Conchar.
That's crazy.
If you're trying to talk about the Grizzlies winning a title and we're this exercise of hope and stuff,
yeah.
Which name first, Jaren Jackson or Ja? Like, which name pops to you as a Grizzlies guy here?
Well, as a Grizzlies what?
As a Grizzlies guy and like winning a title, who is your
Grizzlies chap?
And winning a title, I think it has to be Ja Morant because well, I guess if they're going to win a title, you've envisioned that Ja Morant has become sort of Isaiah Thomas type player. He's become this team leader. He projects to be that based on one season. Well, what he's done is I think is incredible. To shoot nearly 50% from the field. He is one of the best fourth quarter field goal percentages. He is one of the top scorers in the NBA in the fourth quarters this year. Like, he has that thing where he sets up the team as the game goes along, then they win. This is the team that I thought was going to be terrible, and everyone else thought was going to be terrible. And they were legitimately, I think, when Jaren and Ja play, they're 27 and 21, and that's 22 and 10 since December 1st.
Ooh, I like that stat.
I was joking with Adam because you were doing like a top 10 teams in the NBA, and I'm like, where are the Grizzlies? Because, no joke, since they started playing all the guys together with D'Anthony Melton, the last 3 months of the season, the last 45 games of the season, the Grizzlies are, I think, 9th in net rating. They're 9th in defense.
They have a total December 15th moment with them because when he brought that up, I looked it up. I'm like, all right, let me look at this. And it was like, oh, wow, top 8 offense, top 4 defense. Like, oh, shit.
So I think to answer Brandon's question of like the title dream, if you want to dream about the Grizzlies, you're like, all right, Ja Morant becomes an all-star. Jaren Jackson Jr. becomes an all-star, and then they acquire a two-guard or a forward who is also an all-star. And that guy might be like the leading scorer on the team. That guy might be like if you could trade everything you had for Bradley Beal, or like someone, I don't know if the player even exists, someone in the Drew Holiday type. The dream for Grizzlies right now is these guys, Ja and Jaren, and then D'Anthony and Brandon kind of fulfill maybe their peak potential. And for Ja and Jaren, that's becoming all-stars. And then you use maybe the future asset acquired in the Conley trade. You use that Warriors pick you got taken on Andre Iguodala, and maybe you trade 2 or 3 picks out to bring in maybe the second best player or the third best player. And then you have like Jaren Jackson Jr. as a Chris Bosh as a third banana. So that's like the dream. I mean, it's a dream.
But you got the pieces. It's like Denver in that they've got like 2 building blocks, and then they've got a bunch of guys that can all become something or collectively turned into some other player. So I like them. They're definitely in the club. Let's close out the show now by bringing on our friend Darwin.
Yeah, Darwin.
What's happening, brother?
What's up, brother?
Nice
first of all,
Seattle.
Oh, nice. In
Another
Seattle,
one?
sunny. Wow, that's crazy. We caught you both times. Is Keith in the club or out of the club, Darwin? With these,
he's definitely in the club.
He's in the club. All right, congratulations, Keith.
Thank you, Darwin. Thank you.
Although Keith, to be fair, he's in the back of the club. He's like, he's at a table looking at looking for the super young people in the club. But like,
Jesus.
Have you signed your second contract? Oh, I need rookie scale only.
Well, Darwin, you get to another shot here. Our first repeat contestant for the steps here. So go ahead and cue up number 1 there, Allie. And I will cue up the music on my side here. All right. Keith, you're new to this. Darwin is not. If Keith wants, he could ask you for your advice, and you could advise him on the correct answer. These ones, they start off a little easy, but they get hard very randomly. Number 1, which member of the Altitude TV Denver Nuggets broadcast crew won a gold medal in the 1984 Olympics?
It would be Chris Marlowe.
The legend.
That is correct. The legend.
The
legend.
And the leader of a very sensual life, as we've discovered.
I couldn't tell which one he was in that SD State photo.
Oh,
that was on Nuggets.
Really?
Right?
Oh yeah, no.
Did y'all see that?
Yeah, of course. What do you mean you couldn't tell which one it was? I gotta find this photo for tomorrow.
The golden job.
It's like it looks exactly like Chris Marlowe.
In fact, it is.
But he has
a reason.
All right, number 2. Which member of the Altitude TV Denver Nuggets broadcast crew was a member of the Bad Boys Pistons?
No, that's Scott Hastings.
That is correct.
That
is correct.
Wow, I would have gotten Katie Wingy.
There we go. Katie would. Number 3. Which brother of a current Nuggets player is on the Memphis Grizzlies roster?
Brother of
you can use your helper.
Jonte Porter.
That is correct. Very good. For a second there, he almost tripped up.
Wait, what was the question?
Well, I've had a few too many of these. So.
You can rewatch it later, Eric.
But was the answer Jonte or Michael Porter Jr.?
Jonte Porter. Yeah, come on now.
Okay.
Number 4. Which former Nuggets player is currently the assistant coach at the University of Memphis?
Keith knows this one.
Yeah, ask
Keith, can you help me out on this one?
I don't follow college basketball, but I believe Mike Miller is a assistant coach at the University of Memphis.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, correct. That is correct.
Who was
Number 2, Penny Hardaway. Penny Hardaway.
Think
about it. I'm telling you, Penny and Mike Miller is like the ultimate.
I know. I wish I was good at basketball just so I could commit to that team.
I want to fake eligibility. Yeah, I try to sneak in. All right, number 5. This is for a sticker pack.
Second sticker pack.
Oh, this one's kind of tough. I'm not going to lie, Darwin. Which 3 Nuggets players had the highest paying salary for the 2019-20 season? Only this season. Just this one.
Millsap, Jokic, Plumlee. That's not fine.
I'm gonna give you a chance to.
We heard the voice inflection. So
can Darwin and I talk this out?
Yeah, absolutely.
You cannot Google it.
I'm not Googling.
Yeah, show us your hands this whole time.
Oh, by the way, I painted my fingernails with my kid.
Beautiful.
Nice.
You know what? Don't show us your hands ever again.
I've been home for 55 minutes.
No, that was great.
Gary Harris is making a pretty penny.
Oh, Gary's 20 plus.
But he's making more than Plumlee? I don't know Plumlee's salary.
Plumlee was
like 13 or 14 or
19.
something? Oh, 19?
No. Yeah,
Oh, by the way,
the appropriate reaction given Nurkic's money.
What about? I don't know what I'm looking at here.
Yeah,
Keith.
hang on.
Whatever it's out.
Is this a Mason Plumlee jersey? Oh my god!
You guys, I'm telling you, Keith, he knows all the. He's a fan of the obscure.
I have
jerseys?
a Tyler Lydon jersey. Hang on.
No, you do not.
Wait.
You're about to be in the Hall of Fame. All right, Darwin, we do need an answer from you here.
It's early in the game. Yes.
That is
Sorry.
that is correct.
I was rooting for it.
Well done.
Adam pretends he's got psych outs 1 through 5, but don't.
All right, Darwin, sticker pack or T-shirt? What are we doing here?
Oh, let's keep you.
Let's go.
Let's keep it going. Number
Love
6.
it. Love it.
Baby.
Risking it all for a T-shirt. Rank the order of Northwest Division teams by total wins when the season ended this year.
The season, by the way, did not end yet.
When it got, postponed.
Yeah, postpone's the right word.
To be Nuggets. Jazz. Thunder. No, wait, yeah. Nuggets, Jazz, Thunder, Portland, T-Wolves.
Well done. I thought you tripped
Well
up on that
done.
one. That was
This-
really impressive.
This
Nice
question
work.
tripped up our own Harrison Wind in the pre.
Yeah, trivia. I forgot who was
can
in
see
the
that.
Northwest Division for a second.
Number
Well, that's
7.
That
Yeah,
happens
that's-
sometimes.
Let's just get rid of divisions.
Who was the Denver Nuggets general manager and executive vice president before Tim Conley?
Or Tim Conley. EVP. Oh, Messiah.
I'm gonna need a full name. Could be any Messiah.
After failing on that Matumbo question, that's legit.
All right, number 8. Only 2 Denver Nuggets players have earned first-team All-NBA honors while playing for the Denver Nuggets. Who are they?
First team, Jokic and Alex English.
He's
Get the hell out of here!
Oh,
so close. So close. The correct answer, David Thompson.
the Skywalker.
Walker, David
The
Thompson.
answer's
Good.
always Alex English, unless
That one was tough.
Unless
That was a tough one, man.
David
Hey,
Thompson.
Keith, we don't just hand out T-shirts. here.
That's good. I would not.
You gotta
it's
earn
a
it.
terrible business model.
By the way, I just want to say regarding your T-shirt, Keith, did you absorb the Denver Nuggets as your side piece because they have the exact same color scheme as your beloved Memphis Grizzlies?
Well, the Grizzlies don't even use this yellow anymore, but they did briefly.
We
But
don't
no,
use the baby blue, but
It was all. Yeah, it was all
And-
all Jokic.
Yes.
and
I
second
love the
question,
synergy
are there
between
Grizzlies?
these two teams.
Me too, man.
Love it.
But real friendship.
Officially, Grizzlies guys on the
The
DNVR.
2023 Western Conference Finals, though, all friendships are off. Keith,
See you,
thanks so
Ja.
much, man. This was fun. This was like a lot of basketball, like actual basketball talk. It made
We
me
needed
feel like
this.
the season was still alive and well, and like the world was normal and
Yeah.
happening. But so it felt
But it's
good.
not, so
But
you
it's
know.
not.
Like if it wasn't only just the Michael Jordan doc.
Everybody go check out his podcast, Fastbreak Breakfast. Hilarious podcast, very fun, high energy, great intensity, I would say. Lots of energy. You can find it on all platforms, and we'll tweet it out as well. So everybody else, thanks for riding with us. We'll see everybody next time.